We have two parts in ourselves. One is the part that experiences, right? This is a very simple part to understand and to connect with because we have experiences on a daily basis. Two, we have an aware part, a part that is aware of our experiences. So that part that is aware of our experiences, for instance, we know that we are experiencing certain things. We are aware of our emotions. We are aware of our feelings and thoughts. We are aware of our past and future possibilities. This part has tremendous powers that we normally don't use. We normally let ourselves be sucked into our experiences, become one with them, forget that we're able to tap into this aware part and reshape our experiences.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about consciousness. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Shai Tubali. Dr. Tubali is an international best-selling author and a leading authority in the field of self-development and self-empowerment. You can reach Dr. Tubali at his website or his YouTube channel, and I'll include those links in the show notes. Welcome, Dr. Tubali. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Shai, as I was checking out your website, I was impressed by several things. And one of them is you said that complex doesn't necessarily mean complicated. And so I appreciate that. I love things that are simple. Is there a way that you can explain the idea of consciousness in a way that is simple and uncomplicated?
Yes, well, let's give it a try. This is what I've been doing for the past 3 decades. So let's put it in a very simple way. We have two parts in ourselves. One is the part that experiences, right? This is a very simple part to understand and to connect with because we have experiences on a daily basis. Two, we have an aware part, a part that is aware of our experiences. So that part that is aware of our experiences, for instance, we know that we experience certain things. We are aware of our emotions. We are aware of our feelings and thoughts. We are aware of our past and our future possibilities. This part has tremendous powers that we normally don't use. We normally let ourselves be sucked into our experiences, become one with them, forget that we're able to tap into this aware part and reshape our experiences.
Wow.
This part is our freedom.
Freedom.
Yes.
So I have experiences. I can move and do and see and touch and smell and taste, but I can do all of those things without being aware. I can do all of those things and keep doing all of those things without connecting awareness to that. That's a little bit disturbing. And you said when we become aware, it's freedom. I love freedom.
Exactly. Because what happens is without awareness, you're just the stream of your experiences. Now, when you're just one with the stream of your experiences, you have absolutely no control. You become and you are shaped by your experiences. You are shaped by your past, for instance. You are shaped by things that people tell you. You're shaped by certain circumstances. And you become reduced to certain reactions, automatic reactions to these experiences, which you also don't control. So this is the problem. We become trapped in our thoughts, our feelings. We don't realize that we are not our thoughts, not our feelings. We are far bigger than any of them. And this is why I like to think of awareness as the genie in the bottle. It's as if we are a tremendous being trapped in this kind of narrow bottle, unable to come out, thinking that we're so small. That sense of smallness is the result of the loss of our aware part.
Wow. So I'm a genie in a bottle, and my bottle is maybe my experiences, my body, my whatever, and then I am so much more than that. I loved also the word you used as I'm trying to make things simple for me to understand. The word reaction. So, as I'm back to the idea of I am having experiences and I might not be aware, which is weird because I think, of course, I'm aware. I was here the whole time. But if I am reacting to my circumstances, reacting to my experiences, I've lost my choice. I'm just following along. So I want to get beyond just a reaction. And I want to maybe recognize I'm a genie in a bottle. And I would like to be a genie out of a bottle. So how do I get out of the bottle?
Well, first of all, there are the more immediate things that we should do. The first thing we should do is become aware of what I call the law of attention. The law of attention, unlike the law of attraction, it has nothing to do with attracting diamonds to your life. It's all about it's all about realizing that in our real state there is a certain gap distancing us from any of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories. This gap is a gap of choice. So we have our awareness and we have all these things, and we have a choice whether we want to identify ourselves with them or whether we want to give them attention. That means that we are the most powerful beings in the universe, but whatever we give attention to becomes meaningful, significant, and powerful. Whatever we decide that is unreal, that we don't give attention to, that we don't ascribe meaning to, becomes meaningless. When you realize that, you can never become governed or overpowered by any of your emotions or thoughts. We usually think that we are victims of certain thoughts. We say our past haunts me, right? A certain memory, these thoughts, they wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't leave me be. But actually, it's us, through our power of attention, who give these thoughts, these memories, enough food, the food of attention, so they thrive until eventually they feel as if they're bigger than us. This is how we lose our freedom.
Interesting. So help me see if I've got the gap part correct. In I have my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences, but I'm not connected to them all of the time. I choose which things I am going to bring into my awareness. For example, you said I've got a past experience that is haunting me. So out of all of the experiences, everything that I've had, I've picked this one that was awful. And that is the one I have chosen to bring. I don't have a gap on that one anymore. It's right here. I'm experiencing it. And now it's like I'm feeding it with my attention. And so it's getting bigger and bigger until it feels bigger than me and is controlling me. Am I close?
Yes, that's brilliantly put. Yes, let's give an example. Suppose I'm hearing somewhere in my sphere, in my energy field, so to speak, a thought saying, "I hate myself." Now, we usually, when we don't have this kind of communication or sense of the law of attention, we feel that it's inevitable that we become identified with this kind of thought. That's exactly what the first thing I think we that happens when we learn to meditate is that we learn to see thoughts, emotions, feelings, memories as if they were outside of ourselves. You see, we have the choice whether to include them or exclude them. So when we want to exclude them in meditation, for instance, where we learn, for instance, in Vipassana meditation, in Buddhism, we learn how to label our emotions, thoughts, and say, we call these thoughts self-hatred. And we see that it's not necessarily ours. It just surrounds us. It's an option. Now, if I decide to include this thought as myself, as a part of my belief system, I become glued to this thought, and then I find myself saying, I hate myself. And now this becomes my experience, and this experience becomes a felt condition because I feel it becomes, it involves sensations, it involves feelings. So then it becomes a reality, my reality, and I begin to convince myself that this thought describes reality. But so I've forgotten completely the fact that it all started with that moment in which I said, this thought is real. This thought is a part of me. This thought describes reality.
Wow. Okay. So I'm trying to simplify it and understand
Yes,
for
please.
myself.
Yes.
And I sometimes when we hear the terms of awareness, we want to increase the awareness. I want to take that gap and I want to get rid of it. I want to bring it right here, right now. But you've just given me an example where I am a person who says, I hate myself. And that is my awareness. I don't have a gap with that thought. That is me. And as it is me, then it influences my experience. We have our experiences and we have our awareness. My awareness and my experience are meshed. And now this is my identity. I hate me. And that is not a very good awareness thing. And so now, as you're talking about thinking of meditating, in my mind's eye, I've got this Tony Stark type computer screen that's up here with all my different experiences and my different thoughts. And I'm pulling one out and sticking it in. And you're having a chance to say, let's take them out and just look at them for a minute and recognize that is not me. That is one of the thoughts that I can have. And even though it feels like it is me, I can pull it out and say, hey, actually, that is a thought. That is not me. And it sounds like I want one of those Tony Stark computers so I can pull them all out and, and read them and think, what do I want to put in? So so let's say I'm in this spot, Shai, and I have identified with, I hate myself.
Yes.
And this is reality. I mean, it is reality. That's what it is. How do I make a gap with that one when it's so integrated in who I am?
Well, the first thing in awareness is to start having glimpses of a state in which my awareness is free, untethered from any kind of thought and feeling. This is the great liberation of meditation. And meditation is not just some kind of self-disciplined practice to attain silence. It's all about getting to know who I really am. So as you describe so beautifully this process of narrowing, this process of contraction, of self-limitation, in which I started as this kind of free awareness. That's my natural state. But then I become identified with certain thoughts and emotions and memories and narrative. And eventually I experience myself as amazingly small, and this becomes my identity. I'm like a bundle of thoughts, emotions, and memories, and that's it. So the first thing that we should do, and here is a practice, by the way, that I love giving to people and to myself. Identify, because awareness can also be equated with the sense of I am. You see, I have a sense of I am. We all have this kind of experience, right? I am, I exist. Now look for this sense of I am in the body. Where do you find it? Perhaps at the beginning you will find it in the forehead, in the chest, in the soul, in the abdomen, upper abdomen or lower abdomen, so and so on and so on, in the throat, perhaps. Now look for it. Perhaps it is initially in a state of just a tiny seed, which means that my sense of existence has become so small as the result of all this identification. But now begin to breathe into this tiny seed, breathe into it and let it spread, let it expand. That is the beginning of expansion of consciousness. And feel how from a tiny seed it gradually permeates the entire body from head to toe. So now you have this kind of sense of I am present. I feel, I permeate my body. But then continue to breathe into that seed and let it overflow, just like as if you were pouring water into a cup, but you were continuing to pour the water, and it begins to overflow. So this sense of presence begins to surround our body, becomes even bigger than our body. Now continue to do that and visualize how it fills the entire room, the entire space where you are. And then visualize how it breaks through the ceiling, breaks through the floor, and reaches the edges of the universe, which means that you're in a state where you are everywhere. Now, this is actually a very easy kind of visualization. It's not something amazingly metaphysical. Everyone can do that, to have this feeling, because this is how broad our awareness is. So when I have this kind of sense, this is the genie that released itself from the bottle.
How beautiful that you connected it back to that. Okay, so I'm going to try to repeat this a little bit. When I hear the words I am, it's usually followed by another word. And I was waiting for you at the beginning to fill it, like I am lovable, I am worthy, I am something. And you didn't do that. You stopped with I am. So I don't even have to try to figure out what I am, who I am. I'm literally trying to find myself. And it was fascinating in your visualization to imagine, try to find, when you just say I am without another word, I am. Where is that? And you said, is it in my head? Is it in your heart? Is it in your abdomen? Where is I am? Where is it? And you described it, for most of us, is a little seed. I mean, the I am is smaller than what I see when I look in the mirror. It's just a little thing, because I have minimized myself so much that me is tiny, 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 like a seed. Well, if I can find that seed, where is it? Now, imagine and visualize that instead of just a seed, that it grows until it fills my body. How wonderful that I am can fill my actual body. And then you didn't stop there. And now it fills the room. And now it fills all of space. Like that genie in a bottle that's in that tiny container, opening up the cork and allowing it to be free. That's interesting. I still have not gone through a deep self-analyzation of who do I want to be and what do I want to be known as and any of those deep thoughts. It's just, I am. That's both simple and huge. It's mind-boggling. What a funny paradox that it can be so simple and yet so big at the same time.
This is how we just started the interview, right? With the distinction between simple, between complicated and complex, because it's complex is simple. So yes, that's remarkably described. Thank you. Exactly, the I am without adjectives. For even a single moment is such a revelation, because for the first time we experience that we're free. This means that we don't have to be this or that. We can just be have this kind of free awareness. Now, when we experience, we get in touch with our awareness, not the part that experiences, not that part, but the part that is aware. We are beginning to discover some amazing things. One, we're not, that part of awareness is not affected by time. Now, if something is not affected by time, this means that you're not bound to your past, you're not bound to your traumas, and you're also, the second thing you realize is that it's free, in the sense that it's independent. It doesn't depend on certain things in the world to exist. There is a certain sense of self-contained existence. You are because you are. You don't need to be justified. You don't need to depend on your future, as you said, to become a somebody. And this kind of freedom brings about a sense of a profound happiness, which is sometimes called bliss, because bliss is supreme happiness, because you know that finally you are. And from this, by the way, this is where exactly the place where I start all my therapeutic work, how I work with people therapeutically, because my conviction is that this is the only place from which true therapy can begin, and trauma transformation can take place. First of all, you have to be to tap into this freedom, and from that freedom, you have the ability to reshape your past and its effects on you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I did want to talk about trauma and how your work and what you have created, and I see if I can remember the expansion for trauma.
Exactly.
That this is a way. So if I come to you and I have PTSD, I've gone through horrible things, you're going to start me with this little visualization that we did about I am, and try to just let me be free. And when that genie is out of the bottle, now we can begin to do something. Boy, that's a different approach than I've ever heard, because we're not saying, what happened and let's talk about this. We're just starting with I am, with no respect to time. And so here I am now. Well, I'm going to have to ponder this, because it's like something that I need to chew on, because it's so different. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So I've come to you now,
Yes.
and I have PTSD, and I am trying to be. I'm trying to be free. What do I do next?
Yes, exactly. Because unless if I'm not free, as long as I'm not free, I am my trauma. Now, how can I be free from my trauma if there is not even a gap between me and my experience? Now, there are some very important elements that this sense of I amness endows me with when I revisit my trauma, because you see, traumas are moments of shock. Now, moments of shock and moments of, in a way, internal freezing, sometimes also external freezing, in which I resist my experience. I feel unable to digest it. My brain cannot even digest the data, because I feel that the event is bigger than my own being, that I cannot contain it. So I minimize my presence. I experience a tremendous loss of power, and my mind is reduced to the automatic system that simply goes wild and forms all kinds of strange conclusions about life and the world and myself. So now what I do then through this expansion is that I release the genie. Before the genie is released, when I tell the people revisit the trauma, the memory, they feel helpless, powerless. They cry. They are so identified with it. But then when I say, now let's return as the genie, you see, the released genie, now suddenly there is already a sense of inherent freedom, which means that they feel that they're inherently unaffected by that memory. Now then they are able to permeate the event with increased presence. Now they're able to finally be present there, and it's all a matter of proportion, because now the event is containable. Now it is an event within their awareness. And through this presence, they can finally also defrost the picture, the images. They can say yes to the experience, not in the sense that they think now that that experience was wonderful, but that they are able to be there, to remove their resistance, to permit the flow of emotions and all those unconscious subtle movements that took place in their mind, in their body. So then they are able to bring back their selfhood, to reclaim the lost power, and actually to realize that as the genie, their power hasn't been lost in that event. They have it. So they have this sense of inner power. They can let this flow of emotions be resumed and come to a natural end. And they can become aware of all those irrational conclusions that they made in that event, and disentangle them. There's no more need for that, all that automatic impressions. And the last thing is that they feel that they can now reposition the memory. Reposition the memory, it means that the memory is no longer some kind of an frozen moment outside of time that that can never flow, can never change, can never transform. But now it becomes a part of their chain of memories, and they can give it a developmental meaning, which means that they can find some constructive meaning to that event, that it makes sense, that it has some kind of role in their development. So all that is possible when you finally have the presence to contain the event.
Wow. Okay. Complex doesn't mean complicated. And as you describe this, and I'm on this mental journey with you, and I'm saying, okay, so I have PTSD and I was sexually abused as a child. And so here is what's going on inside of me. And it was so horrible at the time. It was bigger than me. I was helpless. I was powerless. There was nothing I could do. It was so big that I froze it. I froze it. And you also said I shrunk me. So I'm tiny, my problem is big, and it's frozen. It is frozen. And now to look at it again, you say, okay, let's don't even worry about the problem yet. Let's not even go there. First of all, let's find me, this little teeny seed. Let's let the genie out of the bottle. Okay. And now that I'm not tiny and powerless and helpless, let's look at it again. Now, instead of my problem being so big that I literally cannot handle it, now it's something that I can contain. I loved how you said it's proportion. Before, my problem was huge and I was tiny, but I changed. Now I am infinite and my problem is containable. So I can thaw it out and I can look at it again and say, wow, that was not a good thing that happened. But is there anything from that experience that I can learn from? Is there anything from that that I can grow and develop? And can I put it, let's also look at what other automatic responses I have done and created. And let's rethink those and maybe change the meaning. Okay, that was really cool. That was really cool. Wow. Beautiful. I want to ask, one of the things that you mentioned here, or not mentioned yet, but I've read, is when we get disinformation, like I can't trust everything that I hear. I can't trust everything on the internet, and I can't even trust everything that I see on the news. I have a lot of information. So how do I work through that? I mean, this is here and now. How do I deal with that?
Well, it's beautiful because this is another example of how we are so close to our automatic reactions that if we are so close to our reactions, so immediate to react, so hastily making conclusions about whatever we see or whatever information we receive, we fall prey to this information. You see, so this kind of loss of gap between my awareness and my thoughts, emotions, and so on extends to this problem of disinformation. Now, who falls prey to disinformation? Those who lack this kind of listening without reaction. First of all, this information usually speaks to that part in us that would so easily perceive the world in a divided way, in a way of good and bad, in a way of a division and opposition, which means that this information elicits those primitive emotions from my being. Now, if I have this kind of listening and I have this gap, and I don't immediately jump to conclusions because I'm so driven to divide the world into good and bad, and I'm not governed by my opinions, I'm going to listen very quietly to keep this gap and to examine whether what I listen to is true in the sense that it is balanced, it is reasonable, it is intelligent, or that it is plainly designed to trigger me. You see?
And isn't that the key? That the information is designed to trigger me. So here I am experiences, and I am aware, and those are separate things, but I'm not really aware. So I just react. I have experiences and I react. And some of my experiences are what I hear and what I see. So I have just been listening to some very disturbing news that says I should hate Shai. He is bad. I am good. And so I just react to that. And I actually don't know anything about Shai, but someone told me he was horrible. So I'm just going to go with that. Or I can choose to listen without reacting. Just listen. Okay, now that I'm not just reacting, and I hear this horrible story, man, Shai's terrible, and I'm going to pause, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that information. Is it reasonable? Does it match? And then I can say, of course not. Of course not. He's wonderful. All is well. We're all good. Because I paused in my reaction. So isn't this fascinating? We're talking about awareness. And I mentioned before, usually awareness has become, we need to be more aware, bring our awareness here. And yet it's not necessarily, it's choosing what we're aware of. You gave me 2 examples of, I hate myself. That is my awareness. That's all I know. That's it. That's who I am and what I am. And in those cases, we want to create a gap. And you also talking about trauma. I had a trauma. I am trauma. I'm a victim of trauma. That's who I am. That's what I am. That's all I am. Let's create a gap. Now, when it comes to disinformation, I want to create a gap. So it sounds to me like I've got my Tony Stark computer here. Let's put the experiences up there and choose which ones to put in and which ones to leave on the board and keep that gap and keep that distance. It's not just about putting more in the present. It's choosing what I put in the present, what I put as my identity. That's
exactly. Cool. Exactly. Listening and choosing. And I think we can only choose when we truly listen. And in this sense, we can talk about listening, true listening, as an aspect, as a feature of awareness. And this kind of listening listens both to what we receive, but also to our own reactions, the reactions, because usually we are our reactions. But we need to be able to listen to both, to what we receive and to the way we react to what we receive. And then our listening is complete, really contains the entire event.
Okay, let me put that back in the disinformation. So I have just heard something that triggered me. First, I listened, and now I am listening to my response.
Exactly.
How did I react to that? Well, it made me really mad. It made me upset. So now I can say, ho, ho, ho. All right, now let's re-examine how we're doing here. Interesting. Okay. So my listening is not done until I pay attention to how it affected me. What was my reaction? I had a reaction. Space between that reaction. Wow. Oh, this has been so cool. All right, Shai, is there anything else you want to make sure we cover before we close today?
No, I think we have a complete conversation here.
Delightful. Well, I appreciate very much you being here and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much. It's been extraordinary to meet you and also listen to you.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Lao Tzu. He said, "The key to growth is the production of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness." Today, I invite our listeners to expand our consciousness. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for listening. Please share and subscribe to help us reach new listeners. And if you'd like to heal your life from the inside out,
There is a free video series at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. Just click on the Free Stuff tab. I also invite you to grab a copy of one of my books, like Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. See you next time on Linda's Corner.